moment. How will we be remembered? Look at the opportunities before us.
This election really isn't about the left versus the right. It's about we, the people, choosing our government and the choice between freedom versus tyranny.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other.
What is going on here is deeper than politics. It is deeply spiritual. We are being called to rise above the hatred and the fear and the evil.
We need to remember above and beyond that we must love our neighbors, that we must treat other people as we hope to be treated.
You want to be a rebel? You want to be a hippie? You want to stick it to the man? Show up on your college campus and try calling yourself a conservative.
America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing!
Don't you want healthy children? Don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again?
The sweet emotion raining all over me. I come to you today as a former Democrat. I will be a first-time Trump voter tonight.
The people dreamed this country, and it's the people who are making America great again. Making that new.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Audit the Vote Newsroom. I am your host, Toni Shoup. Please like, share, and subscribe this on whatever platform it is that you are watching us. I'm not even going to try to rattle off the different social media networks that we're on because my brain is a little bit in mom mode this week. I am on my own. I will not have Karen with me. She has had a doozy of a week herself. Her adorable little girl with the most beautiful long curly brown hair decided to cut it herself. So that's been fun for her. And I've been in a bunch of kiddo moments as well. But please like, share, and subscribe this. Hit the bell, more importantly, so you get notified when we go live so that you don't miss any of these updates. I love Joel's new graphic with the fireworks. Very July 4th-ish American patriotic. Hit the bell. So in other news, as we get into things, it might be a little quicker tonight because, again, it's just me. I had all pukers this week at home with me. We were on puke patrol with the kiddos. My three daughters are 14, 10, and 7, for those that are not super familiar with the life that I have outside of this shed. And they are finally at an age, we had our first stomach bug, this is probably TMI. So you can just ignore this part or turn it off or mute me or whatever. If you're not a mom, you probably don't get it. First stomach bug where they were all old enough to know to hit something. So I wasn't scrubbing carpets or stripping beds. They actually hit solid circular either toilets or trash cans, which was awesome. But it's been a doozy of a week. So we're just going to fly through some high points because I promised everybody we would go live every Wednesday at 9 o'clock and didn't want to go back on that promise. A little more exciting news. Captain Seth Keshel has agreed to be somewhat of a regular guest. So hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of him in the near future on our Wednesday night shows to get his take. He has a much different perspective of the election integrity space and political arena in general. He's got a much more national presence and perspective. And I always love hearing from him. I think he's a great communicator. So we'll be pulling him in as much as we possibly can. AuditTheVotePA.com is our website. Like, share, subscribe, donate if you feel so led and you can. And we'll get into the meat of the show tonight. Happy January 6th. I don't know what we should call this. I saw a couple of different things that I thought were interesting this week. The 4-year anniversary of what the left calls the most violent insurrection our country has never seen. And the right in all reality, for the most part, knows that that's total baloney, because a lot of us, yours truly included, were there on the ground and saw, by and large, a very big peaceful protest. It does not mean we're denying that there was anything that went wrong. There was definitely some shenanigans. However, I am really looking forward to seeing if the Trump administration is willing to do a real investigation into January 6th, because I think we still have way more questions than answers in terms of who orchestrated what the heck went on that day. In fact, I've even seen stuff on my X feed about the pipe bomber, very revealing footage with a guy in a sewer drainage or something. They're calling the pipe bomber. Does everybody remember the pipe bomb that was planted? And that actually caused a big stir, which led President Trump to come say, everybody go home, because there was bomb threats. And of course, there was the massive violent insurrection that was led and caused by a bunch of Trumpers with no weapons whatsoever, not a penknife. It was more flashbangs going into the crowd from Capitol Police, as I recall it, that was causing all the chaos and heightened violence, or I should say heightened excitement, that led to people going into the Capitol building. But unless you've been living under a rock for the last 4 years, you know that January 6th, a lot of the people were let in. Somebody had to let them in. They did not bust down the doors. Sure, there were sections where people were breaking windows. It is very possible that the people breaking windows were not actually America First patriotic Trump supporters, but they were in fact planted there for that very purpose. So I would love to say that we'll get to the bottom of that with the Trump administration, but my level of trust and faith in any government entity is at an all-time low right now, so I'm not holding my breath. However, I did release on my Facebook page this week a video that I should be embarrassed to say I was afraid to share before this, because I was there that day. My husband and we went with 3 other folks that drove down. We did not stay anywhere. We drove in, we parked the car, we took the metro. We did not get near the Capitol in terms of how close people were to getting on the steps. We brought a blanket with us and some hand warmers because we knew it was going to be cold. And we just sat quite a ways back from the actual Capitol itself and just watched everything from where we were sitting. We were seeing people singing praise and worship songs on one of the sides under trees and waving flags, and everything was very peaceful, very copacetic. I did not see a single violent activity, nothing that looked out of place. It was very, very peaceful. And I did share that on, there's the video. Does it have sound, Joel? I can't remember if I played the sound up or not. There it is. This is from my phone on January 6th. That's what I was seeing. That's where we were. And that's what I was seeing. And unfortunately, because I didn't want to get raided by the FBI, I was afraid to actually release this footage until this week. I thought, you know what? Look at those. Okay. So look at these people. I did notice that we caught that. If you could. Yeah. I don't know what's going on there. Keep going back. They're like, I mean, maybe they were cold. Maybe what's the dude in tactical gear? I don't know, but just a lot of weird, bizarre stuff. That's the closest I saw to anything that was kind of suspect that day, was those guys that you saw walk towards the camera that had some type of gear and were hiding their face. Because let's face it, MAGA, we were onto the COVID crap from the beginning. Most of us were mask fighters. We certainly were not wearing masks that day outside, where we attempted to just let our voices be known, exercise our First Amendment right to assemble and use our free speech, and just demonstrate that we wanted Congress to send the dueling slates of electors that came from the 6 swing states back to the state legislatures themselves for further investigation prior to certifying an official presidential candidate. Nobody was trying to overthrow an election. I wouldn't even go so far as to say we were trying to necessarily stop them from doing anything that day. We wanted them to do the right thing, which was give the American people the confidence in the outcome that you supposedly are ramming down our throats is legitimate, which is going to lead me into the next topic of Facebook. First, my brain's all over the place. I got my hacked account taken down finally. So thank you so much to all the friends that followed me that reported it, because there's been a lot of us that have been reporting it for weeks on end. I haven't had access to my main Facebook page, if you were following me on there, since October the 19th. And finally today, a bunch of people are getting messages from Facebook headquarters saying the profile you reported has been taken down. Oh, how convenient. Before I get too far back on that rabbit trail, back to January 6th, I think it's going to be really important for those of us that were there, like myself, if you have a story similar to that at all, or a story period, that we maintain that the narrative of what we actually saw, because clearly the mainstream legacy news media had a different agenda that day and attempted to hijack it and paint it as this horrifically dangerous experience. And something I noticed in my election integrity advocacy efforts in early 2021 is anytime that we would ask a difficult question of an elected official. For example, Kathy Boockvar was the Secretary of State for Pennsylvania and certified the 2020 election for Joe Biden in Pennsylvania in November of 2020, while our SURE system, our electronic voter roll database, was showing at the time over 700,000 more ballots cast, more paper that had been processed than voters who had participated in the election. So the turnout showed X, and the number of ballots that came in was Y, and they were wildly off. And yet her and Governor Wolf rushed to certify the election and then insisted that everything was on the up and up. Never mind that our system is really old, and 70% of it, she's on record, by the way, saying this, 70% of it we can't confirm, so we're not sure, but we're telling you everything's fine. And all we were trying to do on January 6th was say, we have some questions. Would you mind taking a little bit of another peek at these extra ballots cast than voters who showed up as far as the turnout before we inaugurate someone? Can we do that, please? And which, if you start studying history, you'll find out that that's been done over and over and over. This was actually the first, I think I saw this, non-contested certification day. So the first week of January is the time that they certify the election. So what we remember from 2020, where Pence was in charge opening the slates of electors from all the states, and what we saw Kamala Harris do just a few days ago, is standard operating procedure for certification of a presidential election. And so I totally forgot my train of thought. Why was I going with that? It was a teachable moment of sorts, which is not uncommon for me, but I seem to have lost my train of thought of what I was trying to communicate and teach. Oh, it'll come back to me. This is the week that I've had.
Fox News alert. Just moments ago, Meta, the parent company of
Wait,
Facebook
Joel, pause it.
Instagram.
He's going into the video to try to save me. Okay, pause. Thank you. Pause that. I'm checking the comments. Steffi says, I have footage of the police shooting stuff at the people. Well, and that was the narrative, Steffi, from everybody that I do know that was close to the Capitol. And I even have friends that went inside, some that spent time in federal prison over it. A lot of you saw Sarah McAbee. If you've been following us for any period of time, her husband's still incarcerated. I mean, the stories go on and on and on. So there's no question in my mind that something went horribly awry. But are we going to get to the truth of what happened? Who knows? Because I'll give you the cue, Joel, when it's time to play it. But as Facebook is now admitting that they were censoring speech, they were pressured by the US government at the time to censor speech. And so we were not able to gather and share our voices. In fact, I was banned multiple times on what's now a hacked and old, removed from Facebook platform. Looks like they're doing the right thing all of a sudden. I was censored multiple times, given bans. I couldn't go live for 30, 60, 90 days because I had some questions about the election. A lot of other stuff posting due to COVID, and heaven forbid we question whether or not the vaccine is a good idea for everybody. Should employers be requiring it for people to go back to work, or should kids, by the way, kids who were the most or the least susceptible to COVID, but we're going to force them to take it to go to college? Is all of this a good idea? We weren't even allowed to ask those questions. And now Mark Zuckerberg is coming out and saying that he was pressured by the US government to make those censorship decisions. Joel, now you can go ahead with the video. We can listen to what those in the election integrity movement have affectionately called Zuckerbucks. And we'll talk about that in a second.
Commitment to free speech online and a shift away from censoring all of us.
And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years, when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it.
The company admitting that they were pressured into it over the last 4 years under the Biden administration. Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley joins us now. Hey, Jonathan, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ainsley.
Hi. What is your reaction to this, and why do you think they're doing this now?
Well, that's the most interesting aspect of this story. I just wrote a book, The Indispensable Right, that talks about Facebook, Meta, and the social media companies. And we all love a redemptive sinner. It's just that it would be great if that occurred before you were caught. And we have a great deal of information now that does not really support the argument by Zuckerberg that they were unwilling partners forced into this by the Biden administration. They resisted calls from many of us for years to join Elon Musk, to reveal, for example, the Facebook files, which they resisted. They fought at every stage not to be transparent, and that finally collapsed. Now, that criticism aside, this is an important moment. Musk has been out there taking these slings and arrows throughout this process as the only social media company that went in.
You guys get the idea. So Zuckerbucks was forced, essentially. I think he's forced. And so how do we look at this? I agree with that guy to an extent, that this is a win for free speech. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Well, we're looking at a win for free speech, a battle that we really shouldn't have had to fight in the first place if we knew our Constitution and our constitutional rights and could have stood up sooner, which many of us, myself included, were dead asleep to. It was actually a violation of the U.S. Constitution at all. The fact that they're blaming it on the Biden administration is total baloney, because they were censoring election questions in November and December of 2020, and Trump was technically still in office. So I don't know that any government necessarily was, not saying that the Biden administration didn't pressure them, but they were certainly being pressured by somebody, and you can't blame it all on the Bidens because they were censoring. They started censoring around COVID. Maybe they had been censoring even sooner. It just became more obvious. But if you followed as crazy, like I did, started getting active and following what the heck is going on in the world in March 2020, the summertime, a lot of doctors, now known as America's frontline doctors, came out and did a white coat summit in front of the Supreme Court. I think it was June of 2020. And they had at least 10, maybe more doctors that had been treating COVID patients since the pandemic started and were there to basically calm the American public and bring the message of hope that, hey, we've been treating with some of these older drugs. There's no reason to turn people away from hospitals and send them home to die. There's no reason to rush to the ventilator necessarily until you at least try some of these things that we've been, which coincidentally went right along with what President Trump had been sharing at his press conferences that then Fauci et al. Were trying to completely discredit. The moral of the story is this, folks: we can never forget what they did to us in 2020. I personally think people like Zuckbucks here are just trying to cover their own rear ends. Now that there's a new sheriff in charge, he does not want the Trump administration to launch any type of committee that would look into, or Congress, any type of committee that would kind of take a peek into the back door, do what the guy on Fox News is saying, and let's take a look at the Facebook files. Let's see what was actually going on. Who were these people that are actually fact checking? Where is the fact check? What are your sources that you're using? He doesn't want a deep dive because he knows what we'll find. And in Pennsylvania, this is something that me personally, I will never forget this. Never forget that Mr. Zuckbucks dumped $20 million into something called the Center for Tech and Civic Life. We came to know the CTCL, $20 million into Pennsylvania alone in the fall of 2020 under the guise of COVID protection, PPE, personal protective equipment. It's a pandemic. We need to make sure we can get out the vote safely and nobody gets sick. So he dumped $20 million. And Joel, when you get that graphic, pull it up, that shows exactly where it all went. We stumbled on this. One of our volunteers sent this to us early in our pursuit for an audit in 2021, and see if you can blow that up. So the right side of it is the source of where it came from, but I want to be able to show, right there, the money. Every county, how much they took. Look at that. Allegheny County was given a grant of $2 million. $2 million. Their population, where it came from, all the facts and figures we got. Berks County took $470,000. Center, just under $1 million went to Center County. Oddly enough, that's right where Penn State is. Their population, look at Center County. Their population compared to Allegheny. Allegheny is showing in 2019 about 1.2 million residents. Center is showing 162,000 people. And yet they got just under half of what Allegheny was given. Could that have been for drop boxes near the university? Maybe. So, I mean, these numbers are astounding. Chester County, 2.5 million. Delaware, 2.2 million. But look, they even went into the little ones. They even went very small, of course. Juniata, $11,000. Lehigh was up there. Lehigh got just under $1 million. This is the breakdown. This was what Zuckerberg did to our elections. Philadelphia County, $10 million. The percentage of this money that actually went to PPE for COVID is minuscule. Most of it, which you'll see here, if you did a deep dive into this, and we had all the sources. At one point, we had this up on the Audit the Vote website. It became less relevant. The more we were denied an audit, it became less relevant to dig into this. So we took it down. Maybe I should put it back up for just historical purposes, or so people can really look and see the sources are completely legitimate. It pales in comparison. Where most of the money went to was heavy Democrat urban areas, blue areas, and it went to funding drop boxes and satellite offices, because that stuff does cost money. And it was a grant that the county took, disproportionately given out. Kathy Bookvar tried to say that they offered it to every county, and it just so happened the blue counties were the ones that took advantage of it. Well, all of our public record requests indicated it was offered to the collar counties outside of Philadelphia and Allegheny, the strong blue Democrat areas. It was offered to them earlier than it was offered to the rest of the counties in the state. And we could argue all day long, because she's since disappeared into La La Land and off doing lefty stuff with our woke universities. I don't remember the last time I was on a call with her and we called her out personally. It comes full circle. Now I remember what I was going to say about January 6th. Kathy Bookvar did a webinar sometime in 2021 about election security. And the goal of it, clearly, once we got on and saw, of course, us and some of our incredible volunteers, patriots that came by our side at the time, got on the webinar with her to see if we could call her out and ask some questions publicly, which we did, because at this point we had discovered the more ballots than voters and all that yada yada stuff. So when she couldn't answer our questions, she tried to answer the first couple. When she couldn't answer our questions, her narrative immediately shifted onto the travesty that was January 6th. And how could people do such things to our nation's capital? And she played that card when she couldn't answer any of our election questions. And I would just take note when someone currently in the media is backed into the same type of corner, and a lot of times they just ever so conveniently will pivot into January 6th. And what a tragedy that was. That was what I wanted to say earlier. So my whole point of showing you the video that I took and tell you my story about being there, which I've been somewhat obtuse about, just because I think I've become enough of a target and didn't really want the FBI at my door if I could help it. But I just wanted to share that with you so that you keep in the front of your brain that we can never forget what they did to us. There was so much packed into 2020. If you're still sane, yes, here it is, our graphic. This is Joel's. If you're still walking sane human being that survived the last 4 years, especially not taking the jab, I think we all need some kudos on our mental health, that we survived the biggest onslaught of propaganda that the world has ever thrown, I think, at anybody. Of course, we only have our generation to choose from, so I could be wrong on that. But never forget what they did to us, so that we'll continue the work that needs done at the local level to keep this from happening again. Because if you think they're not going to try it again, I don't know, you're living under a rock. Because already bird flu, I've seen rumblings of the next wave that's coming. Conveniently, maybe before January 20th, they'll try to pull something. I don't know. I don't want to go down the really crazy stuff. Or yes, Ron, give them a Medal of Freedom, which Biden has been handing out like candy to people that contributed to the graphic that you see in front of us, which has censored us, shut our business, ruined, destroyed businesses, closed our kids in, although keeping the kids out of school turned out to be kind of a good thing, because parents got to see the indoctrination that was happening, which led to this whole now homeschool, cyber school, alternative schooling movement, which I kind of see as a good thing. Nevertheless, the burning cities, all that stuff they put us through in 2020, Zuckerbucks, I call him Zuckerbox. What does Mike Lindell call him? Zuckerbutt? I don't know. He calls him something funny. Is responsible for allowing that to happen in 2020. So don't for 2 seconds think that all of a sudden he's on our side and all of a sudden he's all about free speech. And someone has surely gotten to him and explained what the 5 freedoms are in the First Amendment. And he's realized the error of his ways.
I've reported that Facebook censored me. Now I've learned that Facebook also censors a bunch of people who report on science.
Please welcome Michael Schellenberger.
People like an environmentalist who Time magazine listed among heroes of the environment. That's Michael Schellenberger.
You're going to need a lot more clean energy.
Facebook also censors
A man named one of the world's most influential people of the 21st century.
That's statistician and environmentalist Bjorn Lomborg. And they censor
What's the
science
date on this
writer
video,
and
Joel, when you
New
get a
York Times
second?
contributing columnist John Tierney. They accuse all of us of spreading misinformation.
Because this was before
really,
2020, by the way.
People guilty of spreading misinformation are Facebook and its fact checkers.
To do the fact checking, Facebook partners with groups like these, all of them approved by something called the Poynter Institute. It calls itself a global leader in journalism and claims it has
a commitment to nonpartisanship and fairness.
But they're hardly nonpartisan. Just look at their website. Their eagerness to honor left-leaning reporters and their push to decolonize the media and change language shows their leftist bias. Poynter once even apologized after it tried to blacklist conservative news sites. Yet absurdly, this is who Facebook partners with to certify who will censor all of us. One so-called fact-checker Poynter approved is this group, Science Feedback, run by this man who says his censors will cleanse the internet.
Tous vos enfants pourront surfer en toute tranquillité sur des vagues d'informations crédibles.
He's the censor-in-chief. His group objected to this article John Tierney wrote that said masking children can be harmful.
More than 10,000 parents said that masks were giving their kids headaches, making it harder for them to concentrate.
Tierney simply cited a study, which later passed peer review, that said masks sometimes cause problems.
Everything I wrote was accurate, and yet they labeled it partly false.
They said the study he cited wasn't good enough because it's not a random sample. Parents' comments may not be representative of the general population. But Tierney had acknowledged that.
It's obviously not a random sample.
You said that.
I said that in the piece.
They censored him anyway. This partly false label is nasty because it leads Facebook to stop showing Tierney's work to many people. What should be labeled false is Science Feedback's sloppy fact check.
The worst misinformation is what the fact checkers are spreading. They've got this key takeaway that masks are fine for children over 2 years old. That's not something that most scientists believe. It's not what the World Health Organization believes.
No, the World Health Organization says kids under 5 should not be required to wear masks.
Does anyone remember the flip-flopping on that issue?
Ignore that and don't cite
so
any studies to support their opinion on mask safety.
Meanwhile, I'm citing peer-reviewed scientific studies that have demonstrated something called mask-induced exhaustion syndrome. There are all kinds of well-documented effects of wearing masks.
You're not saying nobody should wear a mask or that masks are useless.
No,
I'm saying
we should acknowledge that masks do have impacts. You know, workers who wear masks for a couple hours in Germany, they have to stop and take a half-hour break after that. I mean, this shouldn't be a controversial thing to say.
No, but Facebook generally bans it because Science Feedback doesn't want it said.
They don't want anyone presenting evidence that goes against their desire to tell people what to do.
Just wear a mask. I shouldn't have to make it fun. It's science.
They don't want people to seek contrary evidence.
We know that it's been debunked that this virus was man-made.
Another example. Poynter Institute's Thought Police declared that the COVID lab leak idea was incorrect. Science Feedback still insists COVID is of natural origin. Facebook eventually banned even discussing whether it might have been man-made until the very day the Biden administration admitted
COVID may have been accidentally leaked from a Chinese lab.
Only then did Facebook lift its ban.
You're not like a tree hugger kind of guy, right?
I am sort of a tree hugger.
Global warming's another subject Science Feedback does not want people to see certain information about. Michael Schellenberger was censored after he wrote that climate change won't bring an apocalypse,
They censored me for saying that we're not in a sixth mass extinction. We're not.
Climate Feedback justified their censorship by citing this report that claims we are pushing the planet toward a mass extinction. But a chair of that group told Schellenberger, we're not in a mass extinction. We don't say that.
You have to have 50 to 75% of all species on Earth
So the
going
reason they
extinct.
tell us this, here's what you have to understand. Big eye opener over the last 4 years. They push this agenda for money, because whatever policies, whatever lobbyists they're working with, whatever they want to ramrod through Congress in terms of a political agenda that benefits them and lines their pockets, that's what they want the public to know. So that's why, even though they'll censor anything, this guy's probably kind of sort of on the climate change side, but not this specific. They don't want going this route because it's not going to benefit them financially. Keep going. I'm not going to sleep. Keep going.
To be in a mass extinction.
They also censor Bjorn Lomborg for saying,
turns out that when temperatures rise, you're going to see more heat deaths, but many fewer cold deaths. So overall, the rising temperatures have actually saved lives.
Now, it hasn't been proven that the cause of the drop in deaths is the temperature rise. Could have been something else. But so what? His main point that temperature-related deaths fell while the planet warmed is true and important. Yet Science Feedback keeps that out of your Facebook feed.
The points that I try to make are
PTSD.
the points you don't normally hear. And that's what they hate.
Why do they want to do this?
There's a lot of folks who are very emotionally invested in the climate catastrophe argument. Partly, it makes it a lot easier to get people to donate money and to accept that politicians are spending their tax dollars on climate policy if it's the end of the world.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
They have a mission outside just facts. They also want you to not know stuff. That's not fact check. That's simply saying we don't want to hear this opinion in the public space. And quite frankly, that's terrifying.
Il nous faut des centaines de milliers potentiellement.
Now Science Feedback's leader says he wants to expand to censor not just Facebook, but other social media. That makes me scared.
It certainly makes me scared when you look at their track record so far. The goal is nice, that we actually try to make sure we have less misinformation on the internet. But you could very well end up in a place where we only have the approved facts that fit the current narrative. That would be a terrible outcome.
Science Feedback's so-called fact checkers go well beyond checking facts.
They're trying to suppress people whose opinions and whose evidence they don't like. They're not fact checkers, they're fact blockers.
The world doesn't need fact blockers. We need more freedom to speak, not less. Facebook's Poynter Institute censors are now the enemy of open debate.
Wow.
If you like our video.
What was the date on that? Because I thought that was 2020, but maybe that didn't air, obviously, till there's some 2021 stuff in there. All of that to say, please take yourselves back to 2020, 2021. Remember what they put us through so that whatever area of the culture that you're currently digging into, you can stay and motivated to continue the fight, because our work is really and truly just getting started. And if you had told me that 4 years ago about this time, before Audit the Vote existed, again, we didn't start doing anything really. We were hosting Constitution classes, Patriot Academy's Constitution Alive class. The next class that I'm going to host, which that'll segue into that nicely, Biblical Citizenship in Modern America, was just finished filming. So it wasn't even released yet, and it is now the most popular curriculum that Patriot Academy has to offer. We were hosting Constitution classes. January of 2021, before the inauguration, Audit the Vote did not exist. It was born after we watched an illegitimate president with his hand on some book. I don't know if it was the Bible or what the heck he stuck it on. And now the debate over whether or not it's even him, I totally get it. It's just messed up. I hope we get answers. We must never forget what they did to us, what the government is capable of, because our founders set it up so that we, the people, are supposed to be the government. And for decades, we did not know that. So that leads me into the promotion of my next class, starting on, there's two classes actually that I wanted to promote tonight that I've been talking about over the last few weeks, and will continue to until they start. Chasing American Legends starts January the 20th, both at 8 p.m. Central. And my class starts on Thursday nights, the 23rd. Here's Chasing American Legends.
American story is filled with legends, myths, and heroes that are larger than life.
including true stories that are simply unbelievable. We're the Green family, and for years we've been traveling the country sharing the stories that shaped America.
You don't have to look far when it comes to a hero. All you have to do is look in history.
We're chasing the truth about the heroes of our past and finding answers for the future.
That one is being sponsored by American Heritage Girls and Trail Life, the non-woke versions of the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts, partnering with Patriot Academy to do a national class on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Highly recommend it for your tweens and teens, especially if they're not interested in American history. The Green family has a very unique way of captivating an audience of people that otherwise wouldn't care, for lack of a better way to say it, and getting them engaged in it. And so Monday nights, you have a chance to do that. And if you've been wanting to do, a lot of you that are watching either have taken classes before and are eagerly awaiting my next course. When is it going to be? Some of you have probably always wanted to take it, but just never prioritized the time, or just the day didn't work, whatever the case. My next one is going to start on Thursday nights, 8 Eastern, January the 23rd. And we're going to do the abridged version of biblical citizenship this time. So when they first launched the course, it's an 8-week course. Here, actually, I'll shut up and you can hear it from the man himself.
Welcome to Biblical Citizenship in Modern America, the lunch break version, which means we're slicing and dicing this full 8-week biblical citizenship course down to 5 days that you can do during your lunch break, all in 1 week. You're going to enjoy it. Now, the bad news is you're going to miss out on a lot of the great teaching that's in the full 8-week version. So every day as you're going through the course, I know you're going to be thinking about people that you know need to hear and see these things as well. So I'm going to encourage you to host the full 8-week course right there in your home, in your living room, or maybe at your church or somewhere else in the community. But for now, let's get to lunch and let's get to the first day of biblical citizenship. Now, I know you see a particular meal sitting here. We're not sponsored by anybody. If you happen to know a chicken business that might want to sponsor, if you're having your biblical citizenship lunch break version at a particular chicken business, encourage them to send the donations to patriotacademy.com. And by the way, I have never had a bad waffle fry in my entire life. There's a reason for that. There's a formula that produces through a franchise the same waffle fries every time. That's why they always taste good. So if you know the formula, you can get a good result. We're about to find the formula for how you get a good society, a good neighborhood, a good state, a good nation where you want to raise your family. Let's go study that formula and let's become good biblical citizens.
Sweet. Those classes, and Rick Green, his family, are the reason why you're listening to me right now, or there's even a podcast with any of this going on, because that's what I was doing in the fall of 2020 before the election. When I knew something wasn't right, I was taking a class and learning my rights. We can't defend what we don't even know exists. So I hope many of you will come back for a second time, but certainly if you've never been through a class before, you'll make it a priority to attend on Thursday nights. It's only going to be, we're doing the abridged version. I was about to say before the promo started that Biblical Citizenship is an 8-week course. It's a video series, and then we recommend a discussion by our hosts and our Constitution coaches that they lead and facilitate discussion of their students, whether it's an online or it's done in person. Doesn't really matter. It's up to the host. But the videos, the feedback that we got is the videos sometimes are a little lengthy, an hour and 20 minutes. Some of them are an hour and a half. For the most part, they're an hour and 10, an hour and 15 minutes, which for me flies by. But the feedback, especially in the younger generation, was it's a little bit long. And so we shortened it up, and they cut out as what they could, but still getting the good meat of the information in there. And they made a 5-week, what they marketed as the lunch break version. That's the one we're going to do on Thursday night, starting on the 23rd. So scan the QR code that Joel has up on the screen. It'll take you to the registration link. There is no charge. It is completely free. Literally, you have nothing to lose other than a couple hours of time on a Thursday night. And I could probably rattle off a handful of movies that after which I watched. I said, I want my 2 hours back that I couldn't get. I don't think you'll have the same experience with us. Our after party after the video is we call Patriots Anonymous. It's how many of us stay sane throughout the COVID pandemic, was we were able to gather with like minds on Zoom and talk about the issues of the day and what we were experiencing in the culture. And quite frankly, got most of us through what was turned out to be a pretty dark time in our nation, but we're turning the corner. I still kind of can't believe it. What's today, January 8th? We only have 12 more days. Is it only 12 more days before the real president, who in my opinion is on his, well, I should say elected for a third term. He was elected twice, but they stole it and nobody will convince me otherwise. Scan that QR code, register for the lunch break version of Biblical Citizenship in Modern America. You won't regret it, and I will see many of you on the 23rd. Oh, let's see. Let me look at my agenda to see what else. Well, we roasted Zuckerbucks. All of a sudden cares about free speech. Yeah, right. We talked about chasing American legends. Oh, the Patriot Experience. I'll do that in a second. Before I do that, I was hoping Karen could join tonight so she could give you guys updates of Pennsylvania, what's going on in our state house. Biggest lesson, education is key. The fix is local. Do not leave your backyard. That's where it starts. All the change that you can make is in your school district. The quickest change is school districts, city councils, county commissioners. The people that are in charge of your daily life are actually likely your neighbors. And that's where we can affect the most change the fastest. So I will never stop advocating for that, for people to get involved. Karen is now the chair of the Westmoreland County Republican Committee. We had a huge win in terms of just getting our people in good positions where change can be made, positions of power. Congratulations to Ashley Duff. She was the leader of the canvassing effort for Washington County from Audit the Vote. We connected with her pretty early in 2021. She was already on the ground organizing people in Washington County, going to county commissioner meetings, wanting answers of what the heck actually happened. She partnered with us and ran the canvassing effort, and she is newly elected chair of the Washington County Republican Committee. So congratulations, Ashley. And we strongly believe that this is the way. This is the way forward, as we just one step at a time, one day at a time, get involved locally. And that's how we're going to take it back. And hopefully now, having President Trump at the helm on a national scale, he can start, quote unquote, draining the swamp. I'm starting to hate that term a little bit just because it's so swampy. I don't know. So swampy. He'll start draining a swamp from the top down, and we'll meet him from the bottom up. And then maybe, just maybe, we will pass our freedoms and liberties and a constitution that's intact to our kids and our grandkids, because before now they were shredding it, and they were attempting to shred it for decades. The husband and I got into a conversation about the judicial branch of government and how wildly out of control it is. And I can't remember exactly how we were discussing it, but the more we talked, he says, well, that sounds like the judicial didn't they just use the court then to make law? I said, yeah, babe, that's exactly what they did. And that's why your wife has a job, because we have to educate the public that that is wrong. It's not the way our government was designed to work. And it's why we fell off the wagon. And so all our freedoms and liberties get stripped from us. I did hear, is that actually right that Sam DeMarco has resigned his chair position for the Allegheny County Republican Committee? He was my biggest fan for sure. Anyone that knows the history knows that Sam did not like me at all. So, wow, that is amazing that he actually resigned. And to go back up, Babbage 3, I love that he took his oath. Leave that comment up there, Joel. Babbage took his oath on a copy of Cat in the Hat. That's awesome. He resigned. I don't even know, wow. So do you know the process? Does the vice chair move up? Do they appoint somebody? What now? Because I know that people on the ground in Allegheny have been working the precinct strategy and working and fighting to try to get a new chair, but that election wasn't up until 2026. And with his resignation, wow, that's amazing. Could be a combination of things. I know in the past he had some health challenges. Of course, I would never wish that on anybody. We prayed for him when he was in the hospital. I certainly would not go down that path. But I do believe he was a never Trumper. At least that's how he came off to us. And so perhaps he was so upset about the victory of the election that he just has to bow out for a little while. Maybe he's taking care of family stuff. I don't know. Don't care. It's a good thing for election integrity in Allegheny, that's for sure, because he thought people like us and True the Vote were crazy. Everything was fine. And of course, those that follow us and support our work know that we uncovered a massive amount of discrepancies in Allegheny County for our canvassing effort. And the things that have been uncovered since are atrocious. Beyond a reasonable doubt proof that they double scanned ballots in Allegheny County in 2020. Basically, workers counted ballots twice. This was all proven in a court case that no media outlet is actually following. And even in the written transcripts of the case that they monkeyed with Patriots requested transcripts where David Boy, who's the director of elections, is on the stand admitting he is aware that ballots were scanned twice, duplicate ballots. And there was no remedy for that whatsoever. And so a lot of work to be done. Education is key. The fix is local. He's working. Oh, that's what it is. So it's like a win for Allegheny, but not really, because he got a job with the swamp. McCorm smack. Oh my gosh, the work to be done is endless. I know a lot of you think it's a win, and in some ways it is, because we kept President Trump can have the Senate now. It's the only reason I voted for David McCormick. I was not going to be responsible for President Trump not having the majority in the Senate. And that's happened. However, I have no illusions of grandeur that he is truly America first, a true conservative, or that he will evaluate legislation on the lift principles, meaning limited. Does a piece of legislation limit government? Does it support individual liberties? Does it hold up the free enterprise system? And does it promote traditional values? Those are the four things that, in order to save our constitutional republic, every piece of legislation should be measured up against. Is Dave McCormick going to do that? I'd be surprised. But it's going to be up to you and I as his constituents to hold him to that. So stay tuned. Joel, if we could cue up the Patriot Experience video from Rick Green again, because we just can't get enough of that guy. We're going to play him again. You get a chance to join us out here.
Hey, fellow Patriots, the first Patriot Experience is going to happen right here in this room.
First one's already over, but gear up for a second one.
And I'm inviting you to be a part of it. We're going to have a great time. December 10th to the 12th will be the 3-day core curriculum for the Patriot Experience, which is a legislative simulation, constitution training.
So April, that December date you just saw, you're looking at April 22nd, 3rd, and 4th is the next one that you, if you're watching this, can have a chance to attend. Keep going.
Training, public speaking training, how to testify in a committee. All of these things will happen that week. December 10th through the 12th for the 3-day core part of the Patriot Experience. And then if you want to do the 5-day Patriot Experience, you get not only this legislative training, constitutional training, speaking training, all that leadership training, but you also get the training of constitutional defense. And if you do the 7-day Patriot Experience, you get all of that, the full 4-day handgun class, and a private dinner that I would love to treat you to, where we can talk about the future of the United States of America and the role the Patriot Academy is playing in restoring our constitutional republic. But regardless of whether you choose the 3, the 5, or the 7-day Patriot Experience, come join me on December 10th for the very first Patriot Experience right here in this room. I look forward to seeing you here.
Okay, so in your brains, just replace the December dates with April 22nd, 3rd, and 4th for a Patriot Experience, rolling into a constitutional defense series that's going to start on April 25th. You can come for any combination of days, whether you want to stay for the Patriot Experience, 2 days of the handgun defense, all 4 days of the handgun defense, take a whole week and go. Or if you can't do the Patriot Experience, but you can because the handgun defense is on a weekend, if you can come just for that, Joel, if you'll throw up the graphic, we've got registration. You can actually register for that already. Audit the Vote, we are raising money to help a select few of hand-picked patriots, which some of you know who you are, that we are fundraising to be able to help you to go down there, because I don't want some of my really good volunteers and election integrity leaders that have been working so hard on the ground for free for 4 years to not be able to attend this training due to money. So if you donate to Audit the Vote, by the way, go to auditthevotepa.com/donations. Consider becoming a regular monthly supporter. The first person that does that on every show, after every show, the first new donor that commits to a recurring monthly donation, no matter how big or small, is going to get a free t-shirt. So if that is you, thank you. You are basically helping put people through constitutional defense. It is, the market value is $2,000. Patriot Academy's price is only $500, but Audit the Vote for a lot of people is going to cover that. So if you are a donor, this is what you're donating your money to raising up the next generation of constitutional patriots that are going to save our country and continue this fight that we started 4 years ago. Rick Green has been in this battle for a long time. Constitutional defense, Patriot Experience. I'm sorry, Joe, I thought you were going to play the video where he's telling Audit the Vote in Pennsylvania. Great job. Come see me at the campus. If you have that one up, we can play it before we close out. I talked way longer by myself than I thought I would. I thought I'm on my own. I'll just fly through some stuff. Need to get some sleep. Kiddos finally aren't puking anymore. Everybody's healthy. Praise God, we're going into a weekend. My Christmas decorations are all still up. Didn't get to any of that. You think I would have with them flat on their backs, not shouting orders at me and needing food every 5 or 10 minutes. But no, I did not. So if he doesn't have that video, Pennsylvania
Audit the Vote, thank you for saving the election and preventing the steal from happening this time. Your next step is to come right here to the Patriot Academy campus in Fredericksburg, Texas, and get a chance to enjoy the Patriot experience, which means you'll be on the floor debating the bills, you'll be in committee, you'll be learning the entire legislative process, you'll get speaking training, Constitution training, all kinds of cool stuff, and great fellowship with fellow patriots from across the nation. Mark your calendar. You can come April 22nd through 24th with our coach team, and even stay after if you have time to do our handgun defense class called Constitutional Defense. But either way, at some point in 2025, you got to come to Fredericksburg and experience the Patriot experience. Thank you again for saving the election in Pennsylvania. Your hard work is going to reap benefits for generations to come. We'll see you here at the Patriot Experience.
I love that guy. I love that guy. Yes. So we are going to be coming out, by the way, Audit the Vote with reports. We've been doing some analysis on voter turnout and voter registration and how did we actually pull this off in Pennsylvania. Those that were around me in the summer months before the election knew that I was on shaky ground. If you had asked me in August, which many of you did, what do you think? My answer was probably, I don't know. We're going to need a miracle. We were still working as if we were given the miracle. The Bible says you prove your faith, you show your faith by your works. So always encourage people to dig in and keep working, but just the natural side of things did not look good. So I wasn't sure. And I believe that our victory came because of 2 Chronicles 7:14 that says, if my people who are humbled by my name will hit their knees and turn from their wicked ways and repent, I will heal their land. And I know that there were so many of us that were completely oblivious to what was going on prior to 2020 that did exactly that. And we proved our faith with our works. And I think that the Lord honored that and somehow granted a small miracle, which was President Trump winning Pennsylvania. We were the linchpin. I will take you back to election night. The scenario I never thought would happen is an outlet of some sort calls it for President Trump on election night. He accepts and she resigns the next day and it's business as usual. I thought that was never going to happen. And oddly enough, that's where we find ourselves. I have to think that the glory goes to God. But there's been others that have been parading across the country, taking credit for it. And I'm not poo-pooing anybody's hard work. There was a lot of people that worked really hard, but there's a lot more to the numbers than just voter turnout. Certainly early voting and mail-in ballots are not long-term policies that Audit the Vote will ever support or get behind. We have to play the game while the rules are set up. We understand that, but we are still going to advocate for hand counting paper ballots, no electronics in our elections, getting rid of no excuse mail-ins, only absentee, one-day election, none of this weeks and weeks of an election season. That is our focus because that's what generally protects the Republic's election process for generations to come. And that is just the direction that we are going. But don't forget, Rick texted me actually when they called it. I was texting them, my Patriot Academy coworkers on election night back and forth quite a bit. And he's like, I think we're actually going to get Pennsylvania. And the back and forth, and he sent me a really sweet message and just says, thank you so much for overhauling your life because your efforts and everybody on the ground there just saved our nation. And he's right. Pennsylvania was the linchpin when they called Pennsylvania, just like when they stole it in 2020. When they called Pennsylvania, they gave it to the president. And so we are a crucial state, a very important state to maintain, to protect, to continue the fight of freedom in, no matter what it looks like in our state house, which this week, this is my last wrap up point. Our state house inaugurated, I guess that's the word, swore a new session of the General Assembly in Pennsylvania. A new elected group of House and Senate members were sworn into office just this week, and a new Speaker of the House was chosen in another situation similar to 2 years ago, where technically the Democrats have a one-seat majority, but for whatever reason right now, they could have got a Republican Speaker because there were only so many votes on the floor. All of that to say they could have had a Republican Speaker if we had enough strong Republicans, conservative, biblical-minded patriots in there that were willing to fight for that and fight for these values and not their political careers. We could have gotten a Republican Speaker, but they shockingly or not so shockingly, bowed and gave it back to the Democrats. So Pennsylvania has the same Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton. She's a far left Democrat out of Philadelphia. We will not likely be getting any legislation through that is election integrity friendly. And we will most definitely have to stay on the defensive side when it comes to stopping radical, crazy, lunatic left stuff that we saw come out over the last 2 years in terms of gender affirming care, all kind of crazy nonsense, killing babies up to 9 months of abortion under the guise of healthcare, women's reproductive rights and healthcare. And we're going to have to stay vigilant so we can make sure that those bills do not get passed. Thank God we still have a majority in the Senate, and the Senate has to hold the line, and we have to continue working on the ground in our own states. But a special thank you to all of our supporters, especially our donors here in Pennsylvania. Even if you don't live in Pennsylvania, this is such an important state that you're sowing into our state will not go to waste. I don't think ever, really, because it's such a big, important bedrock. It is the keystone. So my husband said, well, hon, it is the keystone. That's right. It's the keystone for a reason. So thank you for those that have walked the journey with us or continuing to support us, whether you're giving your time or your money. It's not going to go to waste. We have a lot of plans moving forward. As soon as Vico and I finish this report, we're going to release that's very revealing, deep dive into the voter registrations and the changes that happened versus what some folks touted as this is why Pennsylvania went Trump. We've got a whole nother side of the story that we're going to release. We're going to call it the untold story of President Trump's victory in Pennsylvania, because we got so far, no media attention. It's not flashy. It's not fancy, but it's very black and white in terms of how the registrations and the turnout shook out. It's going to shock a lot of people. So we are looking forward to putting that out and finishing that up and working on some infographics that we can share and are working on our next moves and where we go from here. Nikki, good to see you. Sorry you missed from the start. Oh, McCormick's he's working for McCormick. We got to connect. Lola days. That gives me like the heebie-jeebies. Joel did pick out a funny video. I can't vouch for it because I haven't seen it yet, but I trust him enough to let him play it as we close out, because I like closing on a lighthearted note and praying that January 20th goes well. When you queue up that video, if you have it, Joel.
Good evening. I'm here in my secret getaway hideout, just enjoying the outdoors. Turns out that things are not as good in the forest as we believed they were. I spoke to an owl just today. He has many concerns. Turns out that just the other day, his humble tree home was raided by squirrels. They stole everything. When he went to the bears to see if they could make an arrest, they simply snarled and went back to sleep. Crime is surging in the forest. Acorns are being extorted. Mooses are humping deer against their will. Wolves are trafficking foxes. Ooh. When I had a conversation with a mole just last night, he denied any claim that he had anything to do with the trafficking in hopes that the foxes return home safely. If it was up to me, my furry friends would take back their woodland home. What's the matter? Did the squirrels steal the nuts between your legs as well?
That was Tucker. First, thank you, Joel. My trust factor in what he thinks is funny that we could actually air just went up. That was pretty good. Tucker Carlson versus the wilderness. Nikki, thank you for that comment. Check in the comments anything I missed. You want to run for office in Pennsylvania? That's fantastic. You feel that you are called to do that. Would love to support that in any way that we can. I wrote on Jeremy Schaefer's Facebook page because he's getting a lot of congratulations that he finally got into the state house. Jeremy Schaefer is a good guy, good Christian guy is what I hear. Will he have the backbone to avoid getting sucked into the swamp? That's what we got to ask. And so I wrote on his Facebook page and said, Jeremy, I'm really looking forward to helping you offer biblical citizenship courses to your constituents. And so that's what it takes. And that's what we stepped away from for a long time. I think that is the way forward. No, Pennsylvania did not flip just because of mail-in ballots or early voting. And again, it wasn't, he worked really hard. I really, this is a tough subject for me because I don't want to poo-poo anyone who with a work ethic that's willing to roll up their sleeves. I just am not going to get on the early voting and chasing mail ballots is a long-term strategy for election integrity. It's not. It is a temporary strategy to figure out how to play in the current game within the rules that we don't like. But at Audit the Vote, we're going to fight to change the rules because the rules right now skew the results and they make it easy to cheat. And I don't want to know about you, but I don't want to live through another 2020 to 2024. It was the craziest 4 years of my adult life, actually throwing the adolescent and childhood in there. Craziest 4 years of my life. probably the craziest of yours. I want to try to secure things so that the Lord tarries and doesn't come back. Then my kids have freedom. Oh my gosh, that's it. I did it. Next week I'll be on point. Might have Captain Seth Keschel with us next week. Might. That's a big if. Hopefully more on a regular basis. And maybe my partner in No Crime, Karen Taylor, she's going to finally get her daughter a haircut, I think, since she's going to cut it herself. One way or the other. Nikki, no, but we have data to back it up. So that's the, we've got some really revealing data at this point that's basically going to show, I'm not sure how we could get behind early voting and mail ballots as a long-term strategy. I agree. Oh my gosh. Every Wednesday night, join us 9:00. I will be here even if I cleaned puke all week and am exhausted and somehow got a shower and drug my butt out here to talk to you all. I told you I would do it every Wednesday night at 9:00, so I will. Yes, Ron, voter ID and 1 day in-person voting. You guys have thank you for that. Ron is an incredible volunteer, cybersecurity helper, and donor of Audit the Vote. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Stay tuned. We will see you next week at the same time, Wednesday night, 9:00. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, auditthevotepA.com. Love you guys.